They're obviously picking up the trash, but they're also finding things like needles, drug paraphernalia. In our city library, it's been an attractant for people that need to charge their phones, maybe looking for a warm environment for a short period of time. And with that, we get to deal with and have to deal with what they leave behind, whether it's drugs or alcohol in this particular case at the very top slide. Next slide, please. This is just more of the same. We actually run into human waste as a hazardous issue on a regular basis. We chose not to include that particular slide, which was fairly graphic. But this is just something that we run into on a regular basis where we're having to spend human resource, time, energy, and disposal costs removing all of this waste. Next slide, please. This is an example of something that's affecting the commercial environment. This is the old Walmart on Bear Valley Road. Certainly we're running into issues and dealing with issues. Private property owners are also experiencing break-ins, whether the buildings are secured well enough or not. People are breaking in those facilities for a warm environment. They're building their encampments. They're actually starting fires in buildings. Next slide. And as we can see here on the bottom left, being the Cocos, that's likely due to actual fire started inside the building, people trying to keep warm. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? We have brought in a number of our internal resources to align closely with the police department. And this slide, particularly on the right, is showing you a lot of what we encounter out in the field. This is a storm drain over at Silicon. Next slide, please. And so we've started reposturing, similar to the police department. You hear about that in a little bit. Some of our code enforcement efforts, aligning them with our sanitation team and also our public works. But this is an example, Bear Valley Road, Pacoima, that just late last year we had to deal with. This was brought to our attention. And as it was brought to our attention, we saw this as not only a homeless encampment related nuisance, but there's also a much larger public safety concern when you see something like this. This is at a storm drain, a culvert under a road. And these culverts are designed to allow for the flow of stormwater to run through them unobstructed. And when they do get obstructed, they can actually serve or create a damming effect. And if they do, you can effectively create a backup of the waters that are supposed to be flowing through. And before you know it, you could actually experience perhaps washout of a road, which could potentially create a much bigger issue. Next slide, please. So another example on the left, and some of what we've had to do on the right to try to mitigate these from occurring, because a lot of what we experience just on homelessness altogether is due to the lack of beds and rooftops available to shelter that number that we spoke to before. I believe it was 187. We continue to see a repeating of history, or repeating of the efforts. So in this particular case, to remove this as a desirable location for the homeless population to build encampments, we basically go in with crews, clean it up, and then secure it in such a way so that it doesn't potentially become a problem for backing up effectively the stormwaters in the next storm cycle. Next slide, please. This is intended to show an illustration of just the multiple departments that we work with, we rely on to help haul off. One of the things that we do, and we try to be as responsive as possible, especially when we're dealing with commercial buildings that have been deemed unsafe and have been deemed locations that are repeat locations for homeless to frequent or visit. In the case of the right, where we're trying to anticipate not wanting to see another building go up in flames, we actually can conduct these commercial board-ups. In both of these cases where we can't get property owners to do their part in trying to better secure some of these facilities, we will actually go so far as to lien properties to recover some of our costs. Next slide, please. This is not an exact science, but just to give a direct sense of some of what we encounter just dealing with whether it's a small cleanup, medium-sized cleanup, or large. We're showing here the different departments used, different resources used, the time spent, and the actual costs associated. And just this, and this is just dealing with cleanups. We have to remind and speak to homelessness as much more than what we're experiencing. There's a much more social economic side to this. But just this cost alone for 2018, dealing with the cleanups, is in the order of $500,000 as an example. This is intended to illustrate the use of our code enforcement. One of the things that we've had to do to try to respond to the number of complaints that we're getting is dedicating code enforcement staff to just the homelessness related issues. 1/3 of our staff on the code enforcement side is dedicated to responding to and helping remediate some of the homeless leftovers. But with that, one of the things that we're finding, given the limited number of staff that we have on the code side, is that it's actually affecting our ability to respond to other non-homeless related code matters. And in fact, it's actually, we've found, impacting our ability to try to claim amounts owed for business licensing and rental licensing. So it's actually impairing or impacting our ability to generate revenues necessary to help some of the other city operations. So with that, that gives kind of a perspective of some of what we're seeing on a direct level. Share with you some of the costs. There's some information that I wanted to hand over to Chief Bessinger to talk about two very critical divisions that he oversees and works with, both the MET team and the HOPE team. So I'll turn it over to Greg.
Good afternoon. Victorville Multiple Enforcement Team, just to explain what that is, it's an acronym called our MET team. Those are deputies assigned currently to the Victorville City Police Department. Back in August, we kind of reevaluated what was going on in the city as far as our needs. The two deputies were assigned to the MET team initially. We looked at wanting to make a little bit more of a proactive approach as far as the homeless issue, which we had been. We realized we needed more manpower. So we reorganized internally. We're able to take 2 patrol deputies and double the MET team essentially. So what the MET team is they do not respond to patrol calls per se. What they are is they go out and can target specific issues that we're dealing with. Now they can respond to a dispatch call for service if they see it if necessary. However, they're unlike regular patrol deputies who will obviously they can answer dispatch calls for service as a routine part of their assignment. So with the MET team, they currently work hand in hand with code enforcement and the HOPE team on our issues where it deals with homelessness. The calls that the MET team will self-assign on as well as respond to when dispatch puts them out to patrol will be loitering calls, people in front of businesses, so on and so forth. So part of that approach is the MET team alleviates patrol from having to respond to those calls, as well as getting to the area quicker, because patrol deputies have to respond to calls in a priority status. Obviously, life-threatening calls come before, maybe a loitering call, for instance. So this was part of our efforts to try to approach the homeless problem that we were having, the complaints we were getting. So our goal when we go out there, the first goal is to offer assistance. There's a lot of folks out there, there's a lot of veterans out there who there is assistance available to. We work with the HOPE team who will be speaking about what they do here in just a few moments. However, that's our first approach, because if we can offer them some sort of assistance and they accept it, that is the greater goal of hopefully getting them off the street and onto better road. However, that being said, there are some folks that do not want our assistance, even when offered, and therefore then we have to do enforcement action. Depending on what the potential crime is that they're doing at the time, we will then enforce the laws when it comes to that. A lot of these crimes are misdemeanors, so the challenge of that is if they're refusing to leave in front of the business or something to that effect, a lot of times we will arrest them. However, they are then site released from the jail later that day on a citation and released back into the community. So very often our net team will contact the same people over and over again. Those who choose to receive no assistance and just choose to panhandle, for instance, on a specific corner or something to that effect. So we're contacting these folks over and over and over again. Just to give you a quick example of when we doubled the net team to a 4-person net team in August of 2018, just in that 4-month period, they responded to over 800 calls for service and we made nearly 120 arrests. Just in that 4-month time frame when we really refocused our efforts and doubled the team. Next slide, please. Another resource we have that the net team uses is the Victim Assistance Fund provided by the city. What that is, it's essentially a fund where quite often we'll have people that end up in our city traveling through, a car will break down, something to that effect, and they have no money to get home, no resources, so they end up on the street. When our deputies come in contact with them, the city has offered to pay for bus tickets home, and since that program was established in July of 2017, we've sent approximately 85 people back to their families when they had no resources to do so themselves. So we consider that success, and we still use that today. Once again, it's voluntarily, and if they want to go back to family, part of the program is they obviously have to have a family member that's willing to accept them, and we make those contacts and send them back if they truly want to go back. Trespass agreements are something that we contact business owners on. Often business owners, when we're first having issues of trespassing, per the law, we have to have a victim on that. So if someone's in front of their business at the middle of the night, obviously the business owners don't want us calling them 2 and 3 times and having to come out and sign citizens arrest every night throughout the middle of the night. So a trespass agreement is something that business can sign, and it's good for 1 year. And what that allows us to do, if someone is on their property trespassing and they have signed that agreement, we can then remove that person and arrest them, cite them with that trespass agreement without having to bother the property owner in the middle of the night to sign a complaint. So that's been pretty successful as well and used throughout the city. The other avenue that the Met team takes when they're not responding to calls is talking to the owners and trying to educate them, property owners, that is, as part of our Not Spare Change, Positive Change program. That's one of the issues, I guess you could say, which is a good issue to have, is we have very kind, giving people in the high desert, and they care about these folks out on the street. However, quite often caring about them and providing change to them and monies to them can quite often challenge what we're trying to do as far as providing them resources on another level and get them off the street. It comes down to, I don't know if you've heard of the broken window theory, many have. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to fix the problem through education. Business owners, yes, sometimes their properties get vandalized, we encourage them to repair it right away. Vandalism, so forth and so on, kind of breeds vandalism, and people come back and start vandalizing more. So we try to educate them on that area as well. Next slide, please. So this is a brief snapshot of the Met team statistics in 2017 and 2018. 2018 numbers will go up a little bit because we first started compiling this in the middle of December. So as you can see, some of what we did is broke this down into basic calls for service, trespassing calls, drunken public calls, panhandling and loitering calls, and then just the rest of them combined into what we consider other transient related calls. So as you can see, I'm looking at this, I'll just look at the 2018, 42% of our calls for service, and reference to the homeless for trespassing. You've got 13% or 429 were reference panhandling, and then drunk in public for 647F was 11% at 359 calls, and another 34% for the rest of the transient calls. So you can see this includes not just the Met team, but some of our other units that will also respond to these calls. So you can see we're dedicating an awful lot of manpower towards these calls for service. Next slide, please. So getting into our HOPE team, our Homeless Outreach and Proactive Enforcement, what the HOPE team is they are San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department program, which are stationed at headquarters. That being said, they go throughout the county. Now, whereas the MET team, first we try to offer assistance, and then secondarily we conduct enforcement if needed. The HOPE team is not an enforcement arm of the Sheriff's Department. They're strictly out there to offer assistance and have culminated many resources to help folks who are in need of assistance. And that's exactly what they do. So recently there was a little spotlight video that was made about them, although they might be a little reluctant to have it shown. I chose to have it shown here just so you can get a snapshot, a brief idea of what they go out and do every day. And then Deputy Mike Jones after will speak on the HOPE team and get into further details about what they do in a countywide operation. So if we can play that video, please.
I think a lot of it is just trying to help people. As law enforcement, that's what we're there, trying to help a community. And it's just a different community. And obviously, it impacts all walks of life. It's really rewarding to see the process, how it's improved, and then how we're able to change lives when we do get those people out.
Love them to help me in any manner they could. I'm sure they got a lot of offering to give to people if they got the ears to listen to them.
Have you went over to Housing Authority up here on Waterman? You know where Vicky's is?
Vicky's Restaurant on Waterman?
Right here
In
on
Mill?
Waterman, Mill.
Yeah.
1 street south is Victorville.
Okay.
It says Housing Authority in white letters.
Right.
You go in there and fill out an application.
I will go up there this day. I'll go up there tomorrow.
We get a lot of calls when we're at work and even on our days off. I'll get a lot of calls from the patrol stations asking if there's any immediate services for the people they contact on the streets.
Little
John's down there.
The hope is you catch them on a good day, that we come out and continue to talk to them and say, hey, you ready to get some help today? What do you need? What can we do for you? Ready to get you plugged in? And continue to hope that we just catch them at the right moment and they're ready right then, right there to accept some of the help or at least start the process of getting them. That's what the hope model is all about, and having done it for 3 years, I love it.
Yeah, so a lot of people go, well, so-and-so, I don't know, they're police, every you know, police.
You know what, it's like I do want out of here because I can't do this. And I know vets that have gotten off the streets within 2 weeks. I mean, I know it's out there.
The sheriff started the program in January 2014, and in the beginning we had like 600 contacts this year. We're going to be almost 1,600 contacts around the county.
Was in homeless over here. He saw me and picked up with that. And he's been amazing. I take a photo of that. I feel like I can talk to him about anything. And that's pretty special. But again, from home, he leads the way.
You know, everybody think officers and police are bad. You know, people think police are bad people and think that, you know, they don't want to help you. They just want to, you know, tell you. But that's not true. Once we met these guys here, we found out there's some good officers, you know.
We sometimes have to check ourselves and realize that this is somebody's child, this is somebody's parent, somebody's mother, somebody's father.
It's giving back to us too to see people that go through the process, because obviously there's the folks that don't or don't want help at the time that we're reaching out to them or whatever it might be with the drugs, alcohol, mental health. So watching people go through the process and get housing is very rewarding.
Good afternoon. Thank you, guys. So the good news, it's not only your city and the county dealing with homelessness. Like the city manager said, it's a national issue, large portion of California. 60% of the homeless are between San Bernardino area and Victorville year and year on the point in time count. So those two communities, and doing this, I've had the opportunity to be on this team for 5 years. And like the video, Sheriff McMahon started this team in 2014 to try to improve quality of life for the whole county as a whole, and all walks of life, if it's people that are housed or not housed. And we built off a national model that was kind of created out of Colorado Springs on trying to connect those people with resources. Like Captain was saying, we're teamed up with behavioral health, Veterans Affairs, public health, alcohol, drug services, and all these people ride out in the car with us. One of the big things is it's not often, and not all the cities in the county are at the table. So to have cities focused in, because these are obviously people that have some type of connection, and I know there's a lot of theories, and I've heard people talk today about cities bringing people up here and dropping them off, and I'll be the first to tell you in 5 years I've heard a lot of that from the public and seen none of that in the community. So the homeless that are here in Victorville or in Apple Valley or wherever they might be around this area, they have a connection to this area. They have family, they have friends that they kind of rely on. They could shower every once in a while, things like that. This NIMBY, build it and they're gonna come, it's fake. There's nothing about that. We've worked with programs across the nation to build relationships with, and seen firsthand where some of these, and in particular like a Step Up, they have some organizations and Path down in LA, and they moved into some very affluent communities and put these LEED certified buildings, and there's not homeless around there, and they're serving that community. So a lot of times we have folks that don't want that, or put it out on the outskirts or things like that. So I think a lot of it, though, to come back to those numbers of 60% in two communities, I think when you look at the poverty levels of two of the biggest cities in the county, and a lot of those people, and going back to the city manager's points on different housing costs and availability, that's firsthand. And a good example in the past year, last year's point in time count, one of the biggest numbers were 25 to 35-year-olds out on the street. The other biggest growth was seniors. And I think if you think of seniors on a fixed income when Social Security is about $870, and the average rent in San Bernardino County is $1,200, you're already $400 in the hole. And then if you bring in a couple and you say that's $1,700, rent's $1,200, car payment, food, they can't get food stamps. So we see a large growth of seniors in the community directly affected by the housing costs and the minimum wage, or the Social Security that's based on a national level. Like the city manager said on point in time count, you usually times that 2 to 3 times, and that's your more realistic number. The point in time count's not a perfect, and there's no way to be perfect and get every single homeless person counted. But that's how HUD looks at some of the funding also that the providers of the county get. In the past couple of years, that's averaged about $10 million that the providers of the county get to offer services to homeless. And that's, all of them are housing first and have to provide their resources countywide. So even though that the organization might be based in San Bernardino or Upland, they serve countywide. The other thing in Victorville specific, in doing this for 5 years, when you come up to Victorville and you go out and look for the homeless population, you see the homeless population at 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning. You get to midday and you see the effects of Proposition 47, Prop 57, and AB 109. The propositions, those both lowered felony charges to misdemeanors. So we used to have drug court that was, people were held to go into drug rehab and things like that. Well, that's kind of went away because it's a misdemeanor to have possession of narcotics and things like that now. Like Captain said, people are site released 4 to 6 hours back out on our streets. AB 109 reduced sentences, and looking at California's numbers over the past couple years and the large growth, particularly in LA, I think you could link those to the number of homeless that are out on the street. The other thing is legalization of marijuana. In January, I went with Deputy Chief Torres to a conference down in Long Beach with chiefs from around the country. And when the chief of Denver, Colorado had his opportunity to speak, he began clapping. And he said, California, I just want to thank you guys for legalization of marijuana, because that affected homelessness, because this younger crowd came up to Colorado with the legalization of marijuana. And bringing that back to Victorville, if you go midday and you go La Paz area or wherever it may be, you see people hanging out. And what we find is a lot of those people are hanging out because kind of that 25 to 35-year-old timeline, some lack of responsibility, some of them with a criminal record can't hang out at grandma's house or mom and dad's house while they're at work because they're pawning stuff off. People are coming, crashing the house, stealing things. A lot of different effects up there. So that crowd kind of hangs out, and it looks like a bigger problem than the homeless that we see early in the morning or late at night. And I think that's a reflection on the point in time count also, is the numbers around the 200 mark, for the past several years, and those people that are in there. Other thing I want to touch on is, as law enforcement, we really have our hands tied, and a lot of it on the state side of voting, but also by the courts. On September 4th of this year, the 9th District Court of Appeals issued a thing that in the western United States that law enforcement is not to enforce any municipal codes in reference to homelessness, so targeting that population. And that goes to, the court said, if you don't have shelter beds in your community, ample shelter beds in your community for those people to go to, then you can't enforce those. There's nobody in our county that has ample shelter beds for their homelessness. There's not one city. There's only 140 shelter beds countywide. So we don't have that. And they can't have religious beliefs. If it's a couple, most of them don't. Nobody accepts couples. Nobody accepts pets. So a lot of different factors to that. Last year, that's our stats up there, just in Victorville, those are not individual, that's total contact, 705. So 306 met chronic homeless definition, which is homeless for a year or more with a disability factor, drugs, alcohol, mental health, substance abuse, physical health issues. 281 were mental health. 21 veterans, 342 people got referred, 246 assisted, 31 housed, and 55 people had income. So you can tell by the numbers there that a lot of these folks have serious issues going on with mental health and different challenges of that. And a lot of times they have multiple things with the substance abuse and things like that also, not just the mental health side. So some of our resources, temporary and transitional housing, working with different programs for drugs and alcohol. Behavioral health that's in our car with us has several different programs in reference to homelessness. They have contracts with housing authority on different things. In the video, the gentleman that said go down to housing authority, senior housing, get them on applications and things like that. Transitional aged youth, that's up to 24 years old, so kind of past the 25 to 35 that we've seen the growth. And there's the Tay Center over off of Green Tree over here for the youth to get connected with resources. The only living arrangement that the county has for them is in San Bernardino. Domestic violence, healthcare, dental services, the VA. There's not a lot of veterans out there anymore. And the ones that have refused everything for housing. And then working with shelters, and up here particularly with High Desert Homeless Shelter and the Victor Valley Rescue Mission and their efforts to doing those. And then moving forward, just on the county level, we're very involved in the different avenues that the county has been working on. And one is cities working together with the county in the efforts to address this issue. And I think we're past the kind of whack-a-mole they take them from Apple Valley, bring them down here, and you guys take them to Hesperia, and they all go back. So we don't see a lot of that, but moving forward, the state is finally putting money towards addressing the issue. Last year, they put about $500 million towards homeless. In Governor Newsom's new budget, there's another $500 million towards homelessness with HEAP funds and several providers in the county, which again, those are going to be serving countywide for motel vouchers and things like that for families. Also, working with behavioral health, one of the things we see up here, a majority of the low income and the homeless, we would say, we kind of refer Midtown, like 7th and La Paz, and then Old Town. Most of the homeless are probably north in the Midtown to up to the Old Town area. And working with behavioral health, we've brought that up and showed them on our mapping and things like that of our contacts that the resources are on the, basically on the Hesperia Victorville line on Bear Valley. So there's a new program that goes to the state to be approved next month by behavioral health in a partnership with us that would be, it's called Inroads. There's some language online in reference to that, but it basically is a mobile team with a psychiatrist to address the mental health and the drugs and alcohol, all the way to the point of getting them medications kind of on a delivery type thing. Because what we see is, the folks that are homeless don't want to go far, don't have transportation, people steal from them, they steal from each other, all those different factors. So this program hopes to address some of those issues with trying to get them the mental health services to get beyond homelessness. And the last thing I want to touch on is the positive change, not spare change. A couple years ago, Sheriff McMahon kind of kicked that off, and we worked with several cities within the county, both contract cities and private police departments, to have kind of one message for our community. And I think to go kind of echo what the city manager and captain have said is when you're given to that person, you're given to their addiction. We housed a person up here in the riverbed that was homeless for 13 years prior to us contacting him. We worked with him for about a year and a half before he got into housing. And I asked him, I said, Kevin, you were homeless for 13 years, and the few years that we worked up here before he got housed, every day we'd see him at the D Street and the 15 off-ramp panhandling. And I said, Kevin, what did you do with that money every day? Was that, for food, or what was that for? And he said, I never spent $1 on food. There's no shortage of food from our community, the church groups and things like that. I spent every dollar on methamphetamine and marijuana. So I think that shows, a lot of times we don't feel, we do feel that we want to give to these people to help. But we, a couple years ago, dressed down, took an unmarked car and went around and talked to these panhandlers, and we found out that 60% of them weren't even homeless. The ones that were homeless all had some type of history of drug or alcohol abuse. And we got a majority of them to admit that, I'm hungry, but I want money, not food. I think when you go around anywhere in the county and you look and there's a panhandler, especially on a freeway off-ramp, you look at maybe the regulatory sign of do not enter or one way. There's usually a bag of food or multiple bags of food because people give them food and they simply put that down. They want that money to continue that addiction. So it's hard for us to always address the panhandling because, again, we have to have a victim or they have to be accosting the vehicles. So simply somebody there with a sign is a form of First Amendment free speech. So to try to address that on the panhandling side, we have to watch them go to those cars multiple times, have a victim, and what does that do? It puts them in jail 4 to 6 hours and they're back doing the same thing. We can't usually move a freeway off-ramp or a business, so the only way to stop panhandling is to change the mentality of the giver. So kind of like a fire triangle where you need oxygen and heat, and you have to take out the giving to answer that panhandling and those addiction issues, and that's what positive change, not spare change, to give to local organizations that are addressing homelessness in the community. So I appreciate your time.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, to continue on with the presentation, it's staff's perspective that now is a good time to talk about going forward, and we have a few more slides. Certainly our perspective that we're in a good place from the perspective that there are a lot of resources available. We've certainly seen it to where communities attempt to try to help address the issue by just throwing beds and rooftops at the issue and not have the type of programs or resources such as what we currently have in the community, not only here at the city, but certainly with the Sheriff's Department, the HOPE team, but you also have a fairly robust group of dedicated organizations here in town providing services as well. Looking forward, and so with that, I think one of the opportunities we have is to be able to put that all to use and harness that into a larger plan that actually attempts to not only address the homelessness and provide beds and rooftops to those that are experiencing or living in homelessness right now, but there's also another population out there that's teetering, that's on the edge of potentially becoming homeless. And one of the challenges that we also have, just looking at the numbers, is that for those individuals or households that are teetering and do have a circumstance that triggers them to eventually lose their home, there isn't a place for them identified to be able to go for that short period of time to try to get back up on their feet and get sustainable. And the sad thing about that is what we're finding is the longer the opportunity goes to where, in a case of circumstance, somebody becomes homeless, and the longer they are homeless, the longer they are, the harder it is for them to get back on their feet and get back to fair living. So those are the issues that I think we've got to talk about going forward. We'll touch on that a little bit in the forward slides. But to address some of the additional things that we're doing, and what we're doing right now, I would say largely is responsive and reactive to dealing with the day-to-day issues. Forward thinking, we are working with the County Housing Authority. There's a project called Desert Haven. I believe it's about 35 units, plus or minus. And that's that conversion project of the old Queens Motel, and that's intended to help serve a need for the chronically homeless. And that's a project that's in the works. I think it's something that certainly will be helpful. But certainly as we compare that 35 units plus or minus the 187 needed, it's putting a small dent in that issue. Certainly we provide through the limited funding that we have with CDBG. CDBG is a funding source that we use, and we've been committed to funding the homeless shelter here in Victorville. Also, we're supportive of the warming shelter that occurs in the wintertime over at the fairgrounds, and certainly we've been a big supporter to the domestic violence shelter here in Victorville. So moving forward, things to consider for this council, and then we'll open it up to discussion. Certainly some of the things that we can do as an organization is use our role as a city to effectively be a leader, to collaborate more with the local nonprofits that are already providing the services and the faith-based organizations. We try to bring them together and coordinate those efforts better and try to also ensure that there isn't a duplication. I'll give you an example, and this is one of the things that I think contributes to some of those photos that we saw earlier. It's not uncommon in some of our parks to go to a park and find thrown away clothes, just literally littered over the park. And whether it's a food giveaway or clothing giveaway, we're seeing that the resources being given, we're starting to believe that aren't prized or valued the same way we would think, because it's so prevalent to be able to get free resources in the community. So we think there's an opportunity to certainly organize and be more strategic. We can certainly encourage our businesses to be a part of the solution, especially as it relates to things like participating in the trespassing ordinance. Continue to focus CDBG on homeless issues. With our, again, CDBG funding being fairly finite, we try to stretch that money traditionally over a multitude of organizations, and not all of which are geared towards being a part of the homelessness solution. That's a policy consideration perhaps for the committee to consider when they're reviewing applications to perhaps gear those funds more towards solution-based effort. We can become more aware and provide additional resources just through our website. It's just another form of communication as to what resources are available. And then certainly continue our current enforcement practices throughout the community. Other items that we can consider are certainly enforcing, or updating our city codes, reviewing property storage in public places, updating park regulations, and things like commercial trash enclosures, because that's actually a big issue. It's certainly contributing to a lot of the blighting effects that we're seeing. Next slide, please. And I think this is really where the rubber meets the road. We have identified just in the point in time count in itself, that there is a need for beds with roofs. And if the council is prepared to take that on, certainly a big issue always is funding. We're seeing more and more funding come available. We're certainly seeing in the governor's proposed budget a desire to increase funding for some of these cancers. It's not going to solve it all, but certainly what we believe is, and I think largely all communities are starting to believe that if there are beds and roofs available, not only to deal with the existing population, but also to serve in a rapid rehousing opportunity to be more preventative, it actually is helpful to reducing the homelessness issue that's affecting communities. Involve stakeholders a little bit more, and consider a housing first model, which is effectively, in large part, more beds, more roofs, and encourage more low barrier entry shelter programs throughout the community, and finally facilitate the development of some permanent and supportive housing units throughout the community. So from that, certainly appreciate your time and indulging me with the information we did want to share with you. Certainly our direct experiences, what a number of the resources are available around this and what's being done, not only by us, but the Sheriff's Department and some of your resource agencies, but also wanted to share with you a lot of what we're seeing with respect to how other communities are addressing it. And then finally, just to touch on some materials that I did share with you, it makes for good reading. The Institute of Local Government, also sponsored by CSAC, which was County Service, it's one of the state county agencies, along with the League of California Cities. That material is actually a very interesting read because it also gives perspectives on what other counties and cities are doing, special programs especially. And then there's also an interesting piece on the myths involving homelessness that I think is a very helpful read, just to kind of get a broader perspective on a lot of what's said and perhaps a lot of what's real. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. That was a beautiful presentation, so much information given, so much that has been done. At this time, I will have council members, do you have any questions or comments at this time? I'll start with Ms. Ross. So each day the City of Victorville's operations consume public resources. Each day these operations produce real consequences for society, whether it's intended or not. And if the manager cannot account for the value of these efforts with both the story and the demonstrated accomplishment, then the legitimacy of their enterprise is undermined, and with that their capacity to lead. Why are we not discussing the program evaluations or the benefit cost analysis verbatim with data and statistics for any of the current programs that the city is appropriating monies towards? We heard about the one-way bus, but we don't know the finances there. In today's agenda, there's the possibility of we can think of a hypothetical. If the manager or any manager in any city would be able to think, this is what we know, this is how we're going to be doing this, or what we have done, and what we know about the city and about the populations is a question that should be addressed. This missing report from today's agenda, so if you looked at your agenda, you didn't have a PowerPoint, you didn't have data, you didn't have stats. It was all presented. I would have loved to have this in writing and be a part of the minutes. That way each one of you can go back and peruse through each data, each stat, because that's what's important. The missing reporting for today's agenda would have assisted and allowed the city to identify the threats and the opportunities in these environments that could have been missed or are missing because there is no agenda reports. There are no reporting of the yearly impact and fiscal expenses to the bus transportation, the one-way ticket line. There is no mention of data distributed in today's agenda of how the whole team has produced successful results. There are other programs that the city has engaged, but we have been silent. There is a good starting point to discuss how we'll use the data instead of a blank start and to have a consecutive follow-up. Today's meetings are not allowed while attended, unfortunately, but we do have a powerhouse of representation from key nonprofit organizations today from Riverside County, from San Bernardino County, and from LA County present. Thank you for your passion and dedication to our residents who need the dignity restored. You are our society that is acting through the elected officials that are represented here before you. What are the goals that the city have encumbered through ICH meetings, through public forums, which include the CBG process or other programs such as Healthy Victorville? How do we reduce recidivism among the homeless population? Every year in February, the county brings experts for awareness of these situations. Why are we not a part, and why are we not fighting about these meetings? Our county sheriffs are contracted by the city, and their resources are entirely committed to doing one particular thing, namely fighting crime. Where are the memos and the reports, and why aren't they a part of today's minutes? We need to be accountable to our community and let them know that we have practices that we would like to have, not just in presentation format, which we do appreciate, but also in meeting format, so when anyone wants to pull out the archives, they are a part of today's agenda items. The city's role should include also the ends, but not only the ends, but also the means to get something solutioned. The city's past approaches to the homeless issues have become widely discredited. Our focus must be to set out strategic goals and developing operational plans for our community. We must focus on gaining data and solutions by relying on measurement systems that reveal to the city promptly and accurately whether the planned course of action that we have or we have implemented today has been successful or not. At 5:30, January 25th, 2019, in the conference room that you just left to come here to sit, there was approximately 35 volunteers. Last year, there was 3 times the amount. We need to focus on marketing to see how many of us can go out and count. It takes the whole society. A group of 6 of us met and we encountered 11 individuals who were without homes, the homeless. The stories of each were very resonant, one by one. They're mentally ill and they cannot get their medications. Women in the streets that are homeless expressed to all 6 of us the disdain of police brutality in our city among complaints about code enforcement, unfortunate. During the presentation, I wanted to ask, were there any testimonials that were taken from individuals and what led to these circumstances? And how could we come to solve as a community these issues? I would also like a hard copy of these presentations and emailed so that I can write some of the concerns that this has been placed on the record, that I'm also going to have emailed so it can be placed on today's record. Those are my comments. My questions were also going to be answered if they can today, if not in writing. And this is for the police force. What allocated budget is appropriated? And this is in terms of bus ticket. What funds does it come from? How often is it allocated? What's the benefit and the cost analysis and unit per cost per individual who use these resources and finances? And we were told that 85 people have been able to reach their home somewhere else outside the city. Who in the department authorizes and who in the department exercises these discretionary fund usages? Is the funding only for the homeless situation or does it include transients and trespassers? When was the video taken where Mr. Jones and Mr. Catano appeared helping the homeless? I seem to recognize something in Victorville, but I'm not sure locations. Do the homeless have rights? Are they rendered on the spot? Are the homeless asked if they want to replace their property or want to contain their property temporarily in a safe place with an actual document that is signed so that their property is taken and safe for them? Some individuals have said not. Badges are covered, and that was a concern for me. Another thing, do the homeless have rights? This is for code enforcement in the city of Victorville. Are they rendered on the spot? Are the homeless asked if they want to take their place and property temporarily and kept in a safe place? I believe it's 90 days, with actual documentation of where their property will be at. and this is for the police. What is the city doing to work with programs that offer rehab and alternate programs such as the 18-month rehab program in the city? Do you have more information on that topic? What contributions has the city gone for the warming shelter, the homeless shelter? Which shelters of domestic violence? Which money appropriations? I have not had information about the warming shelter or any domestic violence, so I would like to have that information. And would you explain what are the current enforcement practices? I know Keith has said that we have a couple of practices that I'm not aware of. And please let me know what programs are being encouraged for shelters and how is it being facilitated to have permanent supported units through the county that's strategically being planned currently and formally with the city of Victorville. I know about Desert Haven. Thank you.
I have a lot of comments, and I'd rather hold it until I hear from people who took the time to come here. Hopefully, you know most of the problems that the city is having with homeless issues, crime related to it, and we're searching for solutions to that. We need suggestions, recommendations, and your assistance. I assure you, no matter how hard we work on this issue, we will not make a dent in this without a commitment from the public, the business people, the residents, and a lot of assistance. So I'm hoping while I have things that I want to say, it's more important, in my opinion, to hear from the people who are here, and then we can address their concerns, not my concerns. Thank you.
Ms. Jones, do you have anything? I echo Councilmember Cox's sentiments precisely. I'd like to hear from the public so that we know how to move forward.
The problem here is it's the result of many things that have affected individuals. Someone said to me, we should try to have them avoid become homeless. The problem is, by the time we know that they're homeless, it's a little late to say we can resolve the problem. Yesterday, I attended the rescue mission because I'm very concerned about the homeless. And I was talking to Mr. Edwards about it. I said, tell me how you perceive it and tell me what we can do for it. I said, I don't know that the city itself can do it. It has to be a coalition. It has to be a coalition of everyone who is concerned and has some type of resources to come together and actually put the data together and say, this is what we can do, this is what you can do, so that it becomes like the hand, 5 fingers working with one mission. I find that we are so not necessarily divided, but separated in our resources and our desires of how to approach the problem, that no one has looked at the foundation that would lead to resolving the problem. We simply look at it and say, oh my God, what can we do? That is never going to resolve the problem. We have to sit down and talk about what we know and put it in a priority in regards to the data and to the resources. We cannot walk away from the problem. The problem itself will not be resolved. For one thing, they're human beings, and they still do have the right to refuse. And this is something we always have to remember, because we think that because they're homeless, they don't have a mind of their own, and this is not the case. What we have to do is that we have to counsel and find out the cause of the problem so that we can resolve it with remedies and solutions that we know will work. Many of them, as we know, is mental, and the problem is cost. I was approached by a family, by a person in regards to a family, husband, wife, 2 children. He came down with cancer. Well, he conquered the cancer, but he was left without any money. So I was approached on the question that he owed $5,000 in rent. So the question to me was, what can you do? Where can he go? He has 2 jobs. He makes too much money to get the help but he's still going to be evicted with his wife and 2 children. This is the type of questions that we need to know as to where can we go as a coalition. I would hope that with more people involved and more answers being given and the resources being noted, that we could at least start with an inception of the idea that we need to work together, because this cannot be done by any one organization. When I did speak to the rescue mission, which I found it very interesting, he said to me, because we have our own rules, and I said, okay. He said, we do not accept money from the city, the county, the state, or the federal. The monies that we have are all private donations. So therefore, the rules of our organization are our priority. And so I said, what is your intent? He said, our intent is to offer 24/7 service, day programs, housing, and out. And I thought, that is where we should begin. And the idea is we need to know each other. And I don't feel that we even understand that, because the resources that are out there, the organizations, nonprofit businesses, cities, we're all working in the dark. And so I would say that we need to get together as a community and have a community committee with the idea of bringing forth the public and the organizations to begin resolving this problem. The homeless are Americans. We do not leave our Americans behind, like the Marines say. We don't leave anyone behind. We need to give a helping hand. And this is how I perceive it. And I would be the first to volunteer to be in that committee, to listen to hear, so that I could bring it back to the city council, because this is the way we have to work. We have to work together as Americans to put Americans back on their feet. Thank you.
I will say my comments. Thank you. That was very nice. I will say my comments until after we hear from the public. So at this time, I will go into other comments. Then a particular statement. Actually, I have, let me see. Yeah, let me see. I have speaker cards.
Madam Mayor, for a point of clarification, when I said what I did, I was deferring my comments as well until after the public speaks. I just want to make sure that's clear. Thank you.
And I do have speaker cards, so 2 minutes for each person speaking. 2 minutes. This is a time and place for the general public to address the city council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda. Per Government Code Section 54954.3. State law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 2 minutes per individual or less if deemed necessary by the mayor, depending upon the number of individuals desiring to speak. All communications are to be addressed directly to the council, not the members of the audience. This is a professional business meeting, and courtesy and decorum are expected. Please refrain from any debate between audience and speaker, making loud noises, or engaging in any activity which might be disruptive to the decorum of the meeting. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of a city council meeting by willfully interrupting and or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9, Penal Code Section 403. Thank you. And this will be for a 2-minute time limit. The first card that I have is Daniel Carrera. After Daniel will be Michael Cross.
Good evening, council. Thank you for being here. Same thing with the audience. Thank you for being here. First off, my name is Daniel Herrera, and I'm a co-founder, and I also run a nonprofit called Searchlight Society. We're based out of LA County, and Essentially, since we only have 2 minutes here, I'll briefly tell you what we do. One of our main operations is we clean up the streets of Los Angeles. We actually go out there with a team of volunteers. The city does not fund us quite yet. However, we go out with a team of volunteers and we reach out to the encampments placed there for individuals experiencing homelessness. And we actually go out, perform outreach, assist them with receiving city resources. And sometimes we actually drive them to clinics and we take them out where they need to go in order to get them that assistance they need. We don't just sit there and leave them there. We also do needle collection, and we sit there and dispose of them in a safe and proper manner. From this date, we have been in contact with over 500, and I verified that, 500 individuals, and we've passed over our information into the Los Angeles city hands. At this time, they've only helped about 10 individuals, and we've been doing this since July of last year. Another thing we're currently doing, and we actually already submitted an application for, is to start operating adult residential facilities. So rather than sitting here and opening up a giant facility, rather than sitting here and making something that we're not all too familiar with, what we're doing is we're starting a small pilot program, and we're creating a small group home facility where we actually do 360 services. We provide mental health, we provide a clinician, a psychologist, we provide assistance with having them administer their medication. In addition to that, we also provide them with job training, job education, job opportunities. We take them to and where they need to go. We're essentially there to hold their hand because unfortunately when we're dealing with the chronically individuals experiencing homelessness, it's not as easy. So thank you again. Once again, we're Searchlight Society, and if you guys would like, I can sit there and send you guys information. Thank you.
Michael Cross, after Michael will be Joseph LeBrady.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and honorable council members. Thank you for the presentation on the homeless situation in the high desert. This afternoon I come to you to speak about a similar issue, and that's our increased crime. A high-speed car chase, a hit and run causing a death, 5 car thefts, 6 assaults, 2 shootings, massive brawl in the mall, a panhandler at every gas station in the city, and a fire at a drug house. Was this an episode of Cops last Saturday night? No, this is what has happened in the last week in the high desert region. It is very alarming to myself and many others that I speak with on a daily basis about the increase in crime that we've seen over the last several years in this area. I've lived in Victorville for many years since my discharge from the Army, and I'm invested in this community, and I want to see it grow and succeed. It's a place that I call home and will call home for the future. I've never seen crime ratchet up so much as I have in the last 2 years. A sobering statistic in the recent news talked about San Bernardino County was 3rd in the nation after Los Angeles and Cook County in documented gang members, and that's not even talking about the ones that are not documented in San Bernardino County. This is an issue that has been going on for a long time, and I don't have all the answers, but I would hope that between all of us collectively, we will come up with solutions in order to make the high desert area a safer place to live and work. We are seeing businesses in the area leave and not want to start a business here. We are seeing good families move out because they don't want to be exposed to the crime and their children not to be exposed to the crime. Let's start thinking about putting our money and resources into crime prevention. For instance, this afternoon we talked about $500,000 on cleaning up the mess made by the homeless encampments. That could have went towards deputies or other resources that could have helped prevent some of the crimes and some of the homeless. And when we talk about the homeless, I believe that a lot of the homeless are not high desert homeless. What I mean by that, I think a lot of them are coming up from other cities down the hill where they have been forced out or pushed out and are pushed this direction, and therefore taxing the resources that we have in this area that are very limited. I do appreciate your consideration on these issues and hope to see some positive solutions in the future. Thank you.
Joseph Brady, after Joseph, Dave Rose.
Mayor Garcia, thank you for the time. I would hope that the next time that you do this, that you give some of us in the business community a little bit more than 2 minutes of time. I know like Michael Krause, who I just followed, he just drove on up from Anaheim early. I do want to thank your staff. I want to thank Mr. Metzler. This is the first time I've had a chance to speak in front of him. Sophie, George, Mr. Duran and Code Enforcement, Scott, Webb. I've been up here for 30 years and 8 months. We have clients calling us all the time, they want to sell their property. They don't want to, when they get off on 7th Street, they see the problem. We see it all the time. You're going to hear from Don Brown and Dave Gross. You're going to hear from Jim Phillips today. I know Carol Yule's here, Karen Sanchez. We have John Smith, who's our Director of Government Affairs in a volunteer role for the High Desert Association of Realtors. Los Angeles has studied this issue. We have a serious problem. This is our problem now. And I know we can have meetings after meetings and committees after committees. At the end of the day, what we try to do in the commercial brokerage business is sell property, increase jobs, increase sales tax dollars, increase value, help improve the infrastructure. And the last time I checked, we're building less than 10% of the homes we built in 2007. We were down from last year, from the prior year. The investment community is telling us that they're extremely concerned not only about your city. Barstow's got a very, very serious problem. While I appreciated the presentation, Keith, that you put out, I do disagree with some of those numbers. I think the homeless population is a lot larger. I would ask our community to come together, but I think that there needs to be a sense of urgency. Your former city manager, a great guy, Doug Robertson, 2.5 years ago, said we had a problem. The next month there was a headline in the Daily Press that we had a problem. And it's taken 2.5 years to hold a hearing. So in our business, there's a sense of urgency. We only can pay our employees when we can sell buildings and lease buildings, and we can't lease out buildings in some parts of Victorville because people candidly don't want to go there. And we hate standing here as brokers in this commercial community, the one that we're so proud of, to tell you that. But at the end of the day, we're here to support our community, but we need to have a sense of urgency. I thank you for allowing us the time, and ask that next time that we do this that we have a little bit more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Dave Gross, and after Dave will be Don Brown.
My name is Dave Gross. I've been a member of this community since 1990. I'm a landscaper here in the High Desert. I take care of a lot of the commercial properties in Victorville. As a landscaper, and I have already warned the officers of this is part of my job. I have to carry a taser to do my job because the homeless have taken over dumpster enclosures. My guys feel unsafe going to these properties. There's hypodermic needles everywhere. Recently, I just did a cleanup of the Coles loading dock. I cleaned up over 50 hypodermic needles. Do I have a way to dispose of them? No. Where do they go? Into the dumpster. That's all I can do. I am not a biohazard expert. I am not going to take care of it if it's a biohazard. I've provided, I can't remember your name, with a flash drive of pictures I've taken over the last couple of years of the homeless devastation here in the High Desert, the damage they have done, the business that the money they have caused businesses to lose. I have one business that spent over $11,000 in closing their dumpster enclosure, protecting their garbage, because the homeless have to dive in there to find stuff. Is there a solution? I don't know. Let's put them in yellow vests and get them out there cleaning up after themselves. Maybe there's a solution. Maybe if they see what they're doing to the community, they'll say, hey, maybe we shouldn't go poop in the dumpster. I've got to clean that up. Years ago, the Daily Press did a story on me when I was moving a dumpster away from a trash enclosure. I actually threw up because of the feces underneath the dumpster. There's homeless camps all the way down Seneca in Mountain View Acres, and that's where I live. They come through my neighborhood at night. They go through my mailbox at night. I have cameras out there now. Fortunately, I get my mail before the homeless have a chance to go through it. The hanging out effect. Yes, they hang out, but they affect us. They attack us. They come after us. We throw out their stuff on a daily basis, but we have no choice. That's what the property owners and the managers of these companies want us to do. We need to do something. We need to do it quick because we're getting overridden and it's just getting too dangerous for me to do my job.
Thank you. John Brown, and after John is Tristan Wilkerson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Don Brown, I'm the president of Lee & Associates. I'm also the president of Preston Lee Management Company, which is the largest commercial real estate company in the city of Victorville. Some of my compatriots have talked about some of the issues that we have in the city of Victorville. Dave Gross, who is one of our prime landscapers, talks about many of the issues that we've had on site. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to do something, and we need to do it immediately. The time for talking is over. I think we've laid out a pretty good program today. The sheriff has talked about some of the programs that they have available. We were actually the lead company that worked with them in developing some of these programs, with posting our properties for no trespassing for the homeless, as well as the right to entry for the sheriff's department, as well as locking dumpster enclosures. But it's not been enough. I'm now being forced to employ armed guards on properties in the city of Victorville because of the threats that our unarmed guards had in trying to maintain the peace and to try to keep the people moving on that were there causing destruction, vandalism, and theft. I've worked with most every organization up here over the last 36 years that I've lived in this desert, and I've always worked with the intent of improving this region and our city. I'm at a loss on where to go at this point in time. When I moved my family here in 1982, it was for a better way of life. If we do not do something quickly, we're going to watch that way of life erode in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Wilkerson, after Kristen, Tyler Woodard.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the individual who invited me here today. This is my first meeting. I would like you all to take a second to put yourself in the position of a homeless person. Everything that you have is no longer. You don't have a home, you don't have anything in the bank, no money, nobody looking out for you, assumably. Just imagine what that's like, and imagine how you move forward from that situation. Where are you going to eat in the morning? How about at noon or dinner time? Where are you going to sleep? What does your next 24 hours look like? Now imagine that person trying to think long term. How can you focus on the long term if you're so concerned with the short term? It is an issue of survival. So with that understanding, my solution is precisely what you suggested, as a coalition of the community. And I would challenge all organizations that offer some sort of service to act in a strategic way. It's not all organizations like there's. Oh my God. Okay, so you don't have to tackle, one organization doesn't have to tackle the entire issue of homelessness. They only have to handle one vital aspect in a strategic way. An organization gives out breakfast in the morning. Another one does their part at noon. Another one offers this at this time. So I would like to speak more. I know the time is running out, but the solution is inspired by California's Guided Pathways project, and using that method of just handling the first phase of homelessness, the survivability of it, we can focus on the second phase and get them re-entered back into society, back into an educational system, into a home with some long-term effects. So that's how I believe we should handle it in the survival phase. My name is Tristan Wilkerson. I'm the president of the Associated Student Body at Victor Valley College. I sit on the board of trustees for Victor Valley College, and I have made a commitment to my community. So let's do something about it. Thank you.
Tyler Woodard, and then after Tyler, Obama Wilson.
Good afternoon, Council. It was brought to my attention today that city policy prohibits the use of cell phones by council members during council meetings. If that is the procedure, then the council should start enforcing it, because Blanca is always using her cell phone during meetings when she should be paying attention to what is happening during the meeting. There have been several occasions during council meetings that Blanca has no idea what is being discussed because she is preoccupied with her phone and everyone has to waste time and explain to her what is going on. I think the council needs to address and take action on this matter. I thank the council for giving this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Lavon Wilson, and then after Lavon, Karen Sanchez.
Thank you so very much for addressing this issue and just everything that has been presented from so many different areas. The homeless is a section of just very, it makes my heart bleed to see that there's two different kinds of people that we see out there that are experiencing these situations. Some of them, even somebody that's a loved one of mine that just recently chose by choice because they couldn't continue in their manner of living in the home, to leave the home and to be homeless instead because they didn't want to follow the rules that were laid out there in the society or in the home, and it just breaks my heart. The other side also breaks my heart, those who are there not by choice but because of a set of difficult circumstances. Either way, they both need addressing, both situations, and I love to see the hope and the other things that are out there to address both situations. I love that we're doing things when it's cold with the warming shelters. There have been people that I have spoken with and said there's a warming shelter, but they have no way to get there. I can't take them. It's not safe for me to take someone in my own car when I have a little one. So I love that we're addressing the fact that there is a transportation thing also. I hope also that when we're looking at these things that we consider the liabilities that are out there in a sue-happy society that we live in, and that we're taking whatever precautions legally to protect ourselves, because there's both sides. There's the hurting people, and then there's people that are out there hurting, and we need to consider both sides. And I just thank you very much that you're having a workshop like this, and please let us know how we can help. What can we do to help? And how to get the word out so that we can all join in and help you.
Thank you. Karen Sanchez, after Karen, Maggie Martin.
Thank you, council members and mayor, for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm Karen Sanchez. I was 2017 president of the Board of Realtors, and I am currently the president of God's Hand Extended. It is a nonprofit that serves the underserved in the Victor Valley. So last year we served approximately 500 people with helping them with food, clothing, and shelter. And Hope Team, you guys are our heroes. You guys are on the streets every day, and I just want to personally thank you for what you do, and you don't get the credit that you deserve. We think that we need to work together with the city. We would like to be part of the conversation with the city. We think that churches need to step up, and we are a faith-based organization, and we do believe that the solutions are faith-based. So we would hope the government would be willing to work together with us. And like Tristan said, this is a big elephant, and we have one spoon, and we're willing to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maggie Martin, after Maggie Martin, Mike Redhorn.
Or audio. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Again, today I'm here to further my request for a censure motion of Councilmember Blanca Gomez, originally initiated on November 6, 2018.
From the Policy Manual, Chapter 4, Rules of Discussion and Debate, Section C, in part, council members must preserve order and decorum and shall neither by conversation or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings or the peace of the council, nor disturb any council member while speaking or refusing to obey the orders of the presiding officer. And I'm looking right at you, Ms. Gomez. Leaving seats. Council members shall not leave their seats during a meeting without first obtaining permission of the presiding officer. Can we get that enforced? Thank you. During the December 18th, 2018 meeting, Ms. Gomez was in violation of the city's policy and procedure manual when she used an electronic device to photograph myself and Speaker Raul Rodriguez. She was admonished by the mayor, but she, once again, Gomez, continued on, thereby once again violating council member conduct and policy. Ms. Gomez then went on to tell the mayor to check the policy manual. That made me laugh. Instead of marginalizing others. Is marginalize the same as contextualize? That's the only way she seems to be able to frame a conversation or a comment. Sadly, and much to my dismay, I'm becoming highly disappointed in this council. I'm disappointed and astounded that our city attorney, Mr. Andre De Bornowski, appears to take no assertive action against Ms. Gomez. Why is that? And I will come back for an answer. I am asking again that this honorable council places a censure motion on the next upcoming council agenda. For this council not to do so sends a screamingly clear and resounding message to the citizens of Victorville. This council has lost all control
It's been 2 minutes.
over Ms. Gomez. How do you expect the citizens to have trust and respect for this council? I'd like to enter this into the record, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, correct one, after Mike, Valentin Medina.
Don't take that off my time. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm going to talk a little bit about the homeless, but I wanted to address one slanderous remark that was made today. It was mentioned, first of all, that code enforcement is part of the Sheriff's Department. They are not part of the Sheriff's Department. And it was also mentioned police brutality. I have worked with Department of Behavioral Health, the Sheriff's Department, and a lot of different organizations for the past 8 years. I have never once heard of any of our deputies being brutal to any homeless person. And I wanted to clarify that, and I'm shaking because that just really upset me. The other thing I wanted to mention and let the audience know is the city was offered a lot of funds, I don't know how many dollars, if we declared a homeless emergency, and the city decided that we do not have a homeless emergency. So I'm wondering, why are we having this meeting and why are all these people here? And maybe somebody could address that at some point. Also, I work with a lot of the homeless people. They have rakes, they have shovels, they rake their area, they bag their trash, they throw it in dumpsters. Whenever they use the latrine, they bury it, but yet code enforcement will come out and make them move about every 2 weeks. And I'm wondering what codes they're enforcing and why somebody from code enforcement isn't here. Because they're the ones, we go out as the HOPE team, as the host team from DBH, we set up interviews with individuals, we find housing for them, we go back and they're gone because code enforcement has asked them to move. So we spend man hours and time trying to hunt them down. I was out 4 hours this morning trying to find one individual. This was actually in Rialto, it wasn't up here. And code enforcement had moved them along. Last group I went with, they said they're too close to housing. So I'm wondering, well, how close can they be to housing? But there's nothing there. So to me, it looks like harassment. And I realize people have one opinion and people have another opinion. But there are some people out there that are vets with PTSD that feel that they can't function around public. There's kids out there that are LGBTQ, that their family has kicked them out because of their sexual orientation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council. This issue seems to be something that, wow, it's brand new. It is not brand new, and not one council member that's up here is at fault for it. This has already been stated. We knew about this for at least 2 years, and council members before you and you sitting here know about this and haven't done anything about it. The pictures that were shown are strategic pictures. This is Victorville, 3/4 of Victorville, most summers. This is not just a couple areas. We have a homeless crisis, and we refuse to do anything about it. Instead, the city attorney and the captain allow the mocking of a council member to entertain everybody else. Every one of you is at fault for this happening. The mocking has to stop. You have to be serious if you're going to tackle issues like this. Now, we concentrate on the Queens Motel that has very limited space. We have an army base that housed many of our soldiers that has housing there. We could direct our resources to the army base where we can bring all the help needed to our homeless. Because we have homeless in downtown and the services up here, and they have no transportation. We need to make some common sense decisions here. Thank you.
Vicky Mack, after Vicky, James Phillips.
Good afternoon. Vicki Mack, Access Mental Health Advocate, NAMI Board Member, and Behavioral Health Commissioner. As part of the Mental Health Services Act, a law passed in 2004 by California voters to improve treatment and services of the mentally ill, which includes the substance abuse population, the County of San Bernardino surveyed mental health stakeholders in 2018. That survey resulted in rural areas, and in particular the high desert, being identified as a priority region for the need for housing services. So the Mental Health Services Act also requires counties to develop innovative projects to address the needs of underserved groups, us. And our county responded by developing the Inroads project, which the deputy kind of touched on. Projected to spend $17 million over the next 5 years, Inroads will create an intensive field-based engagement model supporting multidisciplinary, multi-agency teams that meet, engage, and provide treatment to youth, adults, and families experiencing homelessness. Now, these teams include social workers, peer advocates, licensed clinicians, public health nurses, alcohol and drug counselors, and law enforcement. The intended outcomes of this project include increased client engagement, increased population penetration, increased agency collaboration, and improved services outcomes. Now, the Mental Health Services Act also mandates that behavioral health programs and services are stakeholder driven, and that means that your input determines the character and the direction of these services. We have Behavioral Health Commission meetings the first Thursday of every month in Rialto. We have District Advisory Committee meetings here at the Victor Community Support Services on Cholam. And we also have the Behavioral Health, the Department of Behavioral Health has a community program plan, and this plan has annual updates. Okay, so you have the opportunity to give your input into services. And that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
James Phillips, and then after James, Jim Dillman.
Thank you, Mayor, fellow councilmen. I applaud you all for this workshop. I think it's a step in the right direction, one that's needed for a long time. I'm sure you're well aware from the report that Mr. Metzler gave you of the damage that it's causing our community, and I won't go any further into that, even though I've had my personal experiences. I will tell you that you have the resources to turn these losses into a profit. Or maybe not so much a loss, but it's going to take a lot of innovative thinking, and none of you can do it by yourself. You know that. That's why you're doing this. It's going to take a collaboration. And by the way, I applaud the Sheriff's Department because they've really stepped up and tried to do something, but it's going to take a collaborative effort. And I think this city can lead the way. We have the resources out at SCLA. Those buildings that are out there are not all asbestos filled, as some might suggest. I know there's some that are. But there are resources that are available to you in this community. I believe that if you look at the problems and analyze them, and we don't need the answers to everything, but I think we know what we're up against. And it's a societal problem. There's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to take a lot of effort. So I hope to see follow-up. I hope to see more meetings that will follow this with working environment with positive people that aren't trying to tear everybody down and blame it on one or two people, because it's a societal problem and we have to do something. I think there's a solution. I hope that you'll look at the resources that are available to you and use the ones. Let's go get some of that state money that was suggested earlier, $500 million, and be the leaders and make it an environment. Good news, it was on the Daily Press today. We're the most affordable, one of the most affordable residential areas in the state. So if that means we have to be home to the homeless, let's embrace it and make those Americans feel at home. It's better than having them making their home in our business backyard and making that unattractive. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Dillon and Metro Jim, Roger.
Well, thank you very much, and this is the first time I've ever been to a council meeting like this. So, first of all, the Sheriff's Department, I have to tell you, and all law enforcement in the High Desert, you guys are doing a great job. You're understaffed. I realize it. I worked with Gary Penrod and John McMahon for 23 years in the media and that, and I know what they have to put up against. First of all, a couple months ago, I've always held back because I never want to make anybody mad at me. I called code enforcement and I said, hey, what's going on with the Coco's building? And, you know, are we going to wait until there's a fire with 50-mile-an-hour winds, burns up the hotels and that? They said, well, we don't know who owns it. They pay cash for it, and that way they don't have to register the names, right? I said, really? Well, within probably 3 minutes, all you have to do is call a real estate agent in Los Angeles. That's what they do. And I was told by paying cash for it, that means that they can sit here, they don't have to maintain it or anything. And I said, well, tear it down. I own property in Victorville, Hesperia, Bakersfield, and Kansas City. You tear it down and put a lien against it. Still sitting there. I drove by it before I came over here tonight. I could be up here for 3 days. Target store, you know, give me a break. A lady there that put her and her family, put all their money into a restaurant there, closed it down because of the homeless. Do I feel sorry for the homeless? Let me tell you, nobody could have grown up poorer than me. In the 60s, we didn't even have inside plumbing while everybody else did. I worked 47 years straight and never asked anybody for anything. I go back, I know I'm kind of messed up here with this. You feel sorry for the people? Seniors are making $800 a month. Read between the lines. The reason is they didn't work. That's why. $800 a month in Social Security for somebody almost 70 years old, that means that they didn't work continuously. That's all I got. The homeless, you want to worry about the homeless? That's fine. Do that. Worry about the middle-class citizens in the United States. Kansas City, I just talked to them yesterday about some property. Guess what they told me? Thank California, because we can't handle the amount of Californians that are moving to Kansas City and Denver. Thank you very much.
And then Dan Hodgins.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City Council. I want to first thank you guys for doing this. This is commendable. We're at least starting a process that is well needed. I was here last council meeting to speak to the council, and I was wanting to invite all of you for the point in time count. I was one of the point men. I was a lookout of my team. We are in a serious emergency crisis, whatever you want to call it, in this city. It's horrible out there. I'm sorry. I saw people walking around with gallon jugs of vodka, defecating in the streets while we were just out there. And it's just really sad that there's no, I didn't see any authorities out there. I was hoping you guys would be out there with us so you could see this. It's just a bad situation. I'm a veterans advocate. I was homeless for a little while. And I feel their pain, but we need to help them. I think the idea at the air base might not be a bad idea. I want to be the first to volunteer for Mayor Pro Tem's committee. I think that's an awesome idea. That's how we start. And to Council Member Blanca Gomez, we can't attack our honorable police officers. They're doing the best they can, so shame on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, Hutchins, Dr. Dean, Christine, Blakely.
I just have a couple of things to say. Council Member Gomez and even Council Member Ramirez, you're addressing symptoms. We can't address symptoms. We have to find some kind of a cause and be able to address that. Committees, meetings, we've done this for how many years now? Years and years. We're still here. What are we going to do? How are we going to have to do this? We haven't got any solutions. Think about property owners. Think about, I walk the streets with my kids, when my little kids were little, and even now with my grandkids and great-grandkids. Why do I have to have them watch where they step so they're not stepping where somebody else defecated or urinated outside of some business someplace? What about my rights? I'm a property owner. I'm a taxpayer. Property values. You know, how many people have we had speak about that today? Why are we only doing this with Victorville? Why isn't Hesperia, Adelanto, Apple Valley, Ora Grande, Helendale, all these other communities, why aren't they involved in this? They have to be affected. Maybe we're affected more, maybe our numbers are higher, but it's a ripple effect. It's everywhere. It's not just us, and we can't solve the problem alone. We need to coordinate with these other people. You know, we need a commitment. We need strategies, yes. I think our Sheriff's Department is doing a great job for the resources that they have. I've spoken with Operation Hope many years ago. 4 people at that time, I don't know what there are now, for the entire county of San Bernardino. Seriously, how much is that going to? 85 bus tickets? Is that in the entire county? How much is that really affecting us? Not much. We really need to come up with some hard, fast solutions. We need to involve our business community. We need to involve our faith-based community. And we don't need more committees, and we don't need more meetings. We need somebody that's going to get something done. Thank you very much.
Christine Blakely, and after Christine, Alicia Johnson.
Good afternoon, Council. I know you missed me. I'm going to say this real quick. Thank you for having this workshop. I'm definitely an advocate for our homeless, and I have to say, one way we can get more finances from the state is by turning in our honest numbers. We all know Apple Valley did not have one homeless person last year, so we're going to have to turn in honest numbers to get funding. That we're going to have to do, so we're going to have to work with our other communities. Like she said, they're going to have to be honest when we do our homeless count. I have participated in our homeless count more than once, so we have to be honest with those numbers in order to get the funding. I have a lot of ideas, as I'm sure a lot of us in the community do. I believe one solution is use some of these buildings that the city does own. Let's open it up, fix it up. I work with a lot of nonprofits that are willing to work these empty buildings if the city's willing to give up one. Let's put some beds in it. I'm sure we can get donations from the public. Let's get them off the streets. Let's work with them. We have a lot of mental illness. We have a lot of psychiatrists. We have doctors. We have a lot of people that are willing to donate their time to work with these people, to get them off the streets so they can work with their businesses, and we can start doing something with these people. I'm throwing the Easter egg hunt this year. We're going to be giving away groceries, food, clothing, everything. I do this every year. I'm willing to work with these people. The nonprofits I work with are willing to work with these people. I need you people to work with us. I'm willing to work with you guys. I can get the other cities to work with you guys. We all need to work together because it's a problem in the high desert. It's just that it's a problem in the United States. But like somebody said earlier, we can set an example. We can take an example from LA because they turned in honest numbers to get the funding. We need to turn in honest numbers so we can get the funding too. The Queens Motel, like our city manager said, it's gonna make a little dent. 35 rooms is not enough. We've used that building over there at Walmart. Put some beds in there, get them off the street, and let's do what we gotta do to take care of our community.
Alicia Johnson.
I have a real heart for the homeless, and our church has a program that we're implementing that will hopefully help. Pardon me. And I really, really appreciate the things the Sheriff Department has done and all of our nonprofits. But I'd like to address another underlying problem that is deeper than anything we've talked about. State of California, our education system is at the bottom or near the bottom. We have just added, State of California's just added $10,000 to the cost of building a single home because of solar. We have increased our we focus on helping our kids pass tests, but we don't train them, we don't educate them properly, we don't even teach them coping skills. Our taxes are multiplying like crazy, and they're going up even more under our new administration. So the bottom line is we keep falling apart in the state of California in our ability to get jobs. People can't get jobs. They are not educated enough. And even when they get jobs, they don't make enough money for basic needs. They're not taught of the ability to cope. We are overwhelming our entire state of California. And it's no wonder that people are giving up, turning to drugs, mentally falling apart. It's hopelessness. There's a lot of hopelessness out there. And so I would really like to encourage every person in this room and every city in the high desert to put some pressure on the state of California to back off and help our citizens survive. Help us to feel good about ourselves. People are leaving the state. Pretty soon there won't be anybody left to even pay for all these services. So we need to really put some pressure on the state to treat our citizens with more respect.
Thank you. Romero Rodriguez, after Romero, Mark Grayfield.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, I'd like to say thanks to the police department. Last time in your ceremony on December 10th, thank the police department for doing their job. They escorted Miss Maggie Martin out of the room because she was causing such a ruckus in the celebration of your new welcoming to the event and everything. And thank you, the police department, for doing so. As to the homeless population, I go to Beverly Hills, I go shopping over there, buy some perfume, a watch, or a pen. There's homeless people in Beverly Hills too, everywhere. And like the lady before was saying, it's the national dilemma. I don't understand the other person, how he stated that there are drug addicts, there's crazy people, and these LGBT people also, like the gay and lesbian communities also doing criminals things out there. They're just human beings. The homeless situation is pretty much a society thing. Who has really the right to say, you can't wander through here, you can't live there? If they choose not to buy a house or rent an apartment, they want to live in the woods. It was common fact a few hundred years before, or some years before. Heck, some people live in the woods still. So some people are just transitioning. Some people are homeless vets that we, not just when you see them in the supermarket, say thank you for your service, but really require help out there. They help this country, might as well keep helping them. The city of Los Angeles, I noticed we have 290 homeless people. The city of Los Angeles has 53,000 homeless people. They just passed a proposition, Measure H, which allots them $355 million a year for 10 years. Out of that, they decreased the homeless population by 2 or 3%. Us, I don't think we have $355 million. We've spent quite a bit of money, quite a bit of monies elsewhere that could have been used for the city problems. I won't get into that, but we all know what they are. The thing is, like Pepper was saying, there's a lot of people out there wanting to help. Kim, okay, thank you very much. Maybe next Tuesday we'll be here. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor and council members, Mark Creffield with the Victor Valley Chamber. Just wanted to mention that over the past 4 months, the Chamber has had 2 informal meetings with a collection of business individuals to discuss homeless issues. Mostly it's been the opportunity for them to vent a little bit and talk about the problems not necessarily solutions. But we hope in the near future that our talks will generate some good suggestions that we can bring back to the city and see how maybe the Victor Valley Chamber can help in this process. And I just wanted to mention that today. Putting on my resident and personal hat, I just have to say the biggest issue I see with homeless is really helping the ones that want the help, but the toughest ones are the people that enjoy being homeless. I had a brother that was homeless until he died, and he loved every minute of it. He loved bragging about it. He loved talking about it on Facebook, how much money he was making and how people would bring him food. So those are going to be the toughest ones to get off the streets, the people that enjoy being homeless. I think the people that want help will want to be helped and they'll get off the streets, but the tougher problem is the people that enjoy being homeless. Thank you.
Samantha? I can't believe I got the last one.
Hi, kind of new to all this. I thought this was going to be a meeting for businesses to express how Victorville has started to deteriorate. Been in business for 18 years. The Met team's the only one that's helping us. I don't know who you are, but the females out there are atrocious. They're very, very difficult to deal with. My store is just right around the corner. They get drugs for free, but they sell them to buy their meth. There's been no talk of helping businesses. We're responsible for cleaning up the messes besides the Met team that comes out and helps us and the code enforcement. So businesses are responsible to do this. We're struggling in Victorville, and yet $11,000 for one business. Then we have to hire people to come out and do this. You have another gentleman that's got to hire security guards. That tells you what your city's turning into, and that's what this should be a focus on, not on everything else. And if there was some sort of notification, I'm sure there'd be more businesses here. There was nothing mailed out to any of the businesses. I'm trying to get them all together. We knew nothing of this. This should have been a business meeting. This is what keeps the city going. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Paula Lago. I am, my husband and I are residents of Victorville and also business owners in Victorville for 29 years. We had a business over at the old Walmart shopping center, and when they moved, we saw that there was an influx of crime moving into the area, mainly because they weren't turning on the lights in the parking lot. Our customers were afraid for us to come into our shop, and were asking us to meet them someplace else to do our sales. We have a retail shop. So we moved. The last 5 years, we've been on Mariposa between Scandia and the Vallarta Shopping Center, and we've seen a big influx in crime and homeless in our area. We have been broken into in the last 5 years 7 times. And it came to a point where this year we decided we were putting bars in the windows to keep the windows from being broken, so people weren't coming in. They come into our shop anyway. They steal from us because of the new proposition that they have out where crime is a misdemeanor if you're stealing. There's not a lot we can do other than hold the door and keep them from coming in. And we have ladies that work with us in our shop, and they've been threatened by some of the homeless coming in, especially in the evening, to the point where we're considering getting security for our shop as well, which, you know, it's an added expense besides the bars that we had to put in the window. Our sales have dropped because of our customers seeing the bars in the window, and they know we have a problem with the crime in the area. We do have a lot of homeless in the back part of our shop, in the fields back there. We have seen.
It's been 2 minutes.
We have seen where there are groups feeding the homeless back there and taking care of them, which is great, but it keeps them around in our area. So hopefully we can find a solution to move them. Thank you.
It looks like that's all the cards that we have.
You have a card, you should bring it up front. Red card, okay?
All right, approach.
Thank you, Robert Harriman.
I just want to make a couple quick comments on comments that I listened to. Gentleman spoke about the airport. Why would we want a homeless encampment at an airport with the airport authority trying to market the airport to bring big business, good paying jobs with a higher paying demographic to our city? That is insane. Secondly, property values. I want property values up. I don't want to be on the list of the most affordable housing in California. I mean, that may sound stupid to some people, but I would like to see a higher income demographic come to our city where they're going to generate good, higher paying jobs. I recently did a job, this has been about a year ago now, downtown. And I had a gentleman approach me and ask me, "Are you Bob Harriman?" Or, "Yeah, I am." He says, "Well, don't you remember me? We went to high school together." I could not recognize him for anything. He asked me for money. I don't give homeless money. I gave him $10, but I said, "Don't you dare go across the street to the liquor store." 20 minutes later, there he was at the liquor store. Came back the next day, he wanted more money, and I told him no, okay? But I told him I'll give him a ride. He bragged about being a Marine Corps vet, and his back was bad. I told him I'd drive him to Barstow. He didn't want to go. The other thing is, I had a lady approach my crew members while working, and she had a bottle of Jack Daniels in her hand, and she was soliciting my employees as a prostitute. Now, this is going on downtown, okay? I do not blame you guys, I really don't. And one more other comment, city buildings. I don't want my tax dollar and our city giving buildings to house homeless people. I just don't think that's right. And one more thing, you get these homeless shelter type people come up here and they lobby our city. They want to come help, and they all want to come up here, and then the homeless are going to flock here. So I think we should kind of find an equal balance somewhere, but I definitely don't think it's right to have any of our city buildings given to a nonprofit to house homeless people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any cards? No? I think that's it.
Mayor, I believe you're still getting comments from Councilmember Cox and Councilmember Jones. You didn't speak previously.
Correct. Ms. Jones?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I so appreciate the comments from our audience. It's very important to help us inform our decisions here. The homeless issue is in fact complex. We have to deal with it straight away. And I've been talking about this publicly for a year and a half. It's my view that we do need to create some type of a task force comprised of faith-based groups, community groups, law enforcement, maybe coordination with the county, we need to create a strategic action plan so that we really can get at the root cause of this, identify the root cause so that we know how to move forward. Some of the things that really struck me tonight, one gentleman in particular said that he had to carry a taser. And it's becoming too dangerous for him to work. That's shocking. Our potential for economic growth and long-term viability is being impacted. During my campaign when I was running, I can't even begin to tell you how many people approached me, business owners, business managers, saying that they were very concerned about their ability to go forward because of the brazen behaviors of people that were really affecting their ability to do business, not only do business, but increasing their cost of doing business. It is not right for anyone to choke out the honest endeavors of business people. I do believe that compassion is founded in wisdom. The homeless issue is very important to me. I have a dear friend, a neighbor, who had a crisis in her life. Very intelligent woman, very responsible woman, never asked anybody for anything. She's homeless. Our families come aside and we have some community groups that have come alongside her, and I'm so thankful for it. This situation was a crisis, so I think that we have to find that beautiful balance that we rightly divide between those who are homeless through crisis or no fault of their own, or really are looking to get some assistance and really want to get on a better path for life from those individuals that make it their profession. I'm not interested in funding someone's profession to live off the back of others or the back of our community. I think it's important that we get really good ideas from our community members. We have very creative people, we have very intelligent people with great ideas that can help us develop a plan, a short-term plan, a long-term plan, to get the root cause of issues and to try and stop the constant influx of homeless people coming up here or the creation of people into that unfortunate lifestyle. I also know another young family, single mom, who's on the brink of homelessness, and another neighbor who both she and her husband just lost their jobs, and they're struggling to eat. So this isn't all about people who are, quote unquote derelicts. This is about good and honest and people who work hard, who are facing crises in their life. We need to know how to deal with all of these. So I would certainly, this has been something that was part of my platform, was to create a task force to create a strategic action plan. And I was actually going to, at the next meeting, request an agenda item for this, but it seems appropriate at this time that at least the council consider moving forward with a task force to really get down to the nitty-gritty and get the job done right for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Somewhere around 3 years ago, there was a nonprofit corporation that came to the council requesting a permit because they wanted to start a kitchen to feed the homeless. And privately, I talked to the individuals and said, please do not do that. You will really feel good for 1 hour a day, but you cause the citizens of the city 23 hours of problems because people are flocking here. And the more you provide those services, the more people will come here. And for the people who are doing that, the image that's left behind for the city is bad for everyone. If you look at the Sheriff's Department handouts, if you look at what the staff is doing, and by the way, our staff has been in this arena for about 5 or 6 years now. This isn't something new, but the problem is getting worse. And more people, this is tough to say, but more people want to be able to create a bigger problem. Let me get on a committee and tell you how to do it, feed them a meal, and shut everybody up here again. If you look at the paperwork, if you look at the recommendations, do not feed, do not give money. The second thing is one of the biggest portions of the problem with the homeless are addiction and mental illness. and food and health and money, they're not going to cure any of that. And so please separate those with mental illness, and let's see if we can get the right people who are getting monies from federal and state government and those organizations that are responsible for addressing and address those issues. Also the addiction, that is separate. Very quickly, we've been at this a long time. I know it sounds like this is something new. It's not, but the problem is getting worse. And it's getting worse because just a few years ago, we could actually send a street crew and tear down the tent city on the sidewalk and pass the health concerns. And the courts have now blocked the cities from doing those things because they have rights that we cannot interfere with. And all the complaining in the world won't do you very good to complain to the council, but it might do some good to complain to the state senator and the congressman. So if they get 300 or 400 or 500 letters from this city and every city, maybe they'll look at it more realistically. There's an absolute truism. If they refuse to fund or do anything, they pass it down to the county or the city. Now the city people at the local level then demand that the city council address the problem. And the monies that we can be spending for the community, for the parks, for the police, for activities, we're going to detour that money to homelessness, which is very unfair. Do not let state and federal come off the hook. One last point. I decided that I have made the comment, if you really want to do something, everyone who really wants to do something, take a permanent homeless person home. I took on a person homeless and got my son to give the individual a job. And after about a month, they had to let him go because as soon as he got paid, he got drunk and disappeared. My other son, who's involved in cleaning houses, tried to give another individual some help and actually set up a portable bed, gave the individual a job, and helped the individual. In fact, the day he was fired, he was paid $1,600. And he didn't want any help. He has a brother, who's a professional person that wants to help. There's a local church that wants to help. He is an alcoholic. He doesn't want any help. And the reason that he was let go, and none of the subcontractors that we tried to work with will hire the individual because we could not keep him from drinking on the job. We reached out to agencies that are supposed to help. They didn't want the help. He wanted to be an alcoholic. He didn't have any other problems. He had an addiction. We have to separate these out. We can't have them all the same way. And we have to do more, but don't, as an individual, stop. A nice lady told me that she was always going to stop at the intersection and give the homeless money, and that way they'd stay out of alcohol. That's not the solution. The solution is to provide real help. And the real help is to address the problem of addiction, mental illness, and the actual homeless problem because they can't help them, but they don't want to be helped. The others are going to take specialty groups. And we do have money in the county and the state to help the mental illnesses. We have 50% of the homeless that are incarcerated are simply let go. And so forcing the rules doesn't do any good. There's no place to be in. We're struggling with it. We're doing what we can. The council has been addressing this. They've been working hard. Staff has been working hard. And somewhere around September, October, we decided because the election is coming up, it was unfair to start a bunch of programs. Because ours were doing a lot, but they were failing. And we continued with the programs. Sheriff's Department got involved. They did a great program. They are doing a great program. And if you would like to have a committee or be a long part of the committee, the staff gave 2 words on the sheet of what they have done. You would be amazed what the city is doing, and it's not enough. We need your help. Each and every one of you. We need your input. We need help. We need assistance. We need your cooperation. We need your ideas. Whatever you can do to help, we appreciate it.
Thank you. I guess it's my turn now. I'm not going to echo the same thing that has been repeated over and over. We all understand all the different things that have been done and that need to be done. I know we have the nonprofits. The one that I really believe is doing a terrific job, and I'll stand behind them, is Rescue Mission, because they do work with them 24/7. It's not like they just give them a meal.
once a day, and then they close their door, and it's up to the public to deal with them, and the city gets the blame for it the rest of the time. So I'll stop there. I have a question. The first one on this list here, the lot external electrical outlets. At my place of business, I've had to call, just like everyone else, I've had to call the police department for assistance because they keep breaking into the electrical boxes. And I cannot understand why they were doing this. I thought it was for their phones, but I understand that a lot of these homeless people have that, I don't know what you call it, that ankle thing. At the ankle monitor, yes. And supposedly that needs to be charged every day? Or how often?
Generally, it's every day.
But if they're homeless, where do they charge it? They break into the boxes. And that's what they're doing. They're all lined up at my place of business on the weekend. And I thought it was funny, but it's not funny really, you know. I don't know, would we have one of these stations in different areas maybe, where they can charge those monitors? Would that be a solution?
I think that would probably be a question we have to maybe get probation on. Generally, most of our probation and figure that out. It's a little bit bigger than just the sheriff department deciding. So I think that's what we have.
But that's a thought. Yeah, because if they need to charge those things every day, you know, and there's no place for them to do it, they're gonna break in somewhere to do it. And so, okay, that was my question. I'm not blaming you or anything like that, I'm just asking a question. The other thing that I have, I just want to say thank you so very much to the police department. Thank you to the whole team. Thank you to the NET team. You are doing a terrific job. You're out there actually contacting these people face to face. You talk to them, you understand what their needs are. If they don't want the help, we cannot blame you for that. You're trying to help. And I thank you. A lot of people don't understand that. They think that maybe you're just walking around for exercise. But we know you're doing something. And 99% of us do believe that you're doing a terrific job. And I want to thank all of you. And thank you. Now at this time, I believe everyone spoke already. So at this time, we will be moving on to item B2, request for council members' discussion and possible action regarding the items for the upcoming city council agenda. And I do have one item that I'd like to bring up first. It has been brought to my attention that the furloughed government employees have asked if the city has a deferred utility payment plan as other cities. City manager, do we have, one of you, do we have anything in place right at the moment to assist with that request?
We don't have anything formal in place. Certainly that's something we can discuss. I think internally what we've contemplated perhaps advising on when the time comes about is perhaps having a system in place where those that are subjected to the furloughs maybe contact us, register with us, prove to us that in fact they're impacted. The easiest thing for us is just to not effectuate the shut off in the case of the water. I think that's that's what we're seeing some of the latest.
Okay. Well, I really didn't expect for you to have an answer for this at this time. I was just asking if we had anything in place. If we don't, I would like to agendize this for our next city council meeting. That's what I would like to A motion on it? There has been a request for some government employees that have been furloughed, that can make their utility payments. And they were asking if the city had a plan where we can actually defer payment until they receive their rent.
You're talking about federal employees?
Yes.
I thought they were all getting paid.
Well, supposedly they are getting paid now, but they may be going into another furlough February 50th. It's not, so this was just for discussion. We're not making a decision. I just thought that if it does happen, that they're not able to meet their obligation, I would like to have discussion at our next meeting.
So that's a motion. That's a motion for the next meeting to have discussion regarding the possibility of a deferment program on utilities for federal workers.
Because the point where Keith Mesler, I believe, addressed that similar instance, stating that it was discretionary if that were to be able to occur. I don't know if that's still the case.
I'm asking to have this agendized for our next council meeting.
So, Madam Mayor, I second that, and thank you for, you took the words right out of my mouth. That was the motion that I was in fact going to make this evening to see if we could have a deferral on utility statement charges for those federal employees that might be interested. So certainly I second that motion.
So this will be agendized for our next council meeting.
We need a vote on it. We have a motion and a second.
And we need a clear motion to be stated for the record instead of a discussion occurring because I don't have a motion.
I think I reiterated the motion for the mayor. The motion was to have discussion at the next meeting on deferment of utility payments for federal workers at deferral.
Correct.
And is that going to include not just discussion but possible action? Because right now, it just said discussion, which means we don't take action. So I would like to modify it and say possible action to take place.
Mayor, are you okay with that? That would seem like an appropriate addition.
Well, discussion and possible action.
Yes. And that's second. Councilman Jones, you with that second? Yes, that's the motion now.
I have a motion by Mayor Garcia, seconded by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Anyone else have any?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do thank you. So given our discussion this week during this meeting and all of the very helpful comments from our audience, I do think it's timely to request an agenda item for the council to discuss creating a task force for the purposes of creating a strategic action plan to deal with the issue of homelessness in our community. I believe that the February 5th agenda might be becoming full, so we could certainly do it to a meeting after that, or the soonest meeting after that, if the 5th is already full.
So your motion
Is to have discussion and possible action regarding the creation of a task force to create a strategic action plan to deal with the issue of homelessness in our community.
I'll second that.
And that is to come back at the second meeting in February, potentially.
Preferably the 5th, but if the agenda is too full, I would certainly be amenable to it being at the meeting as soon as possible thereafter.
I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Councilmember Gomez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
No. There's nothing more before this council, so this.
You have reports for council members on item B3. I don't know if there are any.
Oh, yeah, reports, okay. My oversight, yes, we move on to item B3, reports from council members, and this is a 3-minute time limit. Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll defer my comments till the next meeting. Thank you.
Ms. Ramirez?
No. Any items that I have for the next meeting, we can get ready to schedule.
Yes, I'll address my comments in Spanish for some of the individuals that are here that are only Spanish speakers. Tengo un placer de estar aquí enfrente de usted y usar dos lenguas. Disculpen por el momento que usted está aquí, teniendo 3 horas esperando, pero estamos trabajando diligentemente para que usted sea serviciable con el gobierno y ojalá muy pronto podamos tener el gusto de que usted no nada más se quede aquí como sordo, sino que usted tenga la oportunidad de dar sus 3 minutos y ojalá un intérprete igualmente. Muchas gracias, lo voy a decir también en inglés, porque personas aquí han dicho que no entienden el idioma y no quieren quedarse fuera, como muchos de ustedes se han quedado. And so what I was saying is it's very unfortunate that we have individuals here that have to sit through the entire process 2 or 3 hours without the knowledge of understanding what we're speaking, and I want to give thanks for them for staying this long. And we are working diligently to be able to provide governmental services that service different languages. And so as we work diligently, I translated it because we had 2 individuals that didn't want to stay out of the conversation as you guys have stayed out for so long. So I appreciate your time here. Thank you.
There being no other action, meeting is adjourned.